Thank you, welcome. I am honored, and it's a very big joy for me to have you on board with us. Thank you, Pavletić. I could say a colleague, a friend, who we met last year when Nazarbayev University joined European Network for Academic Integrity. And since the Integrity project focuses on creating platform for student collaboration, both local and international, with students on various levels, high school, university students, graduates, undergraduates. We were highly recommended to connect with the working group in European Network for Academic Integrity, which focuses on engagement of students in discussion of academic integrity, academic quality. And I also would like to congratulate Peggy. Peggy this year was awarded for outstanding contribution in promoting academic integrity. So Peggy, the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for your kind words. I'm sure that we will continue working together and discussing these topics even when I leave. I will share now my presentation, and later, of course, I can share it as well with you and with the participants. It's not a problem.
Okay. You can see it, Peggy. It's okay.
Did you see it in full screen now?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, so I will present to you today academic integrity and plagiarism from our perspective as the European Students' Union and students working on academic integrity in practice. So first, I will just briefly introduce who are we and what our organization does, and what is the role of students currently in different practices, and some identified academic integrity breaches from our perspective and from the perspective of our wider membership, and how can we engage the students more. So the European Students' Union is the organization of 45 students' union from 40 European countries, and we represent around 20 million students. Our newest edition is the Faroe Islands, which joined us this year. And we have been a member of the European Network for Academic Integrity since 2020. And since then, we have been working tirelessly to make sure that the student voice is being heard on the international level, and that academic integrity is something that is quite often discussed in our circles. Our members have to run according to certain standards, so they have to be student-run, autonomous, representative, and they have to operate according to democratic principles, and they need to demonstrate all of these qualities in order to participate in the work of the European Students' Union. We have one president and two vice president, and then there's 7 of us, executive committee members, who work on very specific topics. And we have 2 pools of experts. One is on quality assurance, and one is the pool of trainers that we recently re-established. The quality assurance pool of student experts is something that I also closely work on, and now we have been trying to kind of connect more academic integrity with quality assurance and the quality procedures at higher education institutions. We have around 30 proposals at this point. We had 27 for 2021, and the situation didn't change much now at the beginning of 2022. Usually we have 2 annual board meetings and European student conventions. They happen every 6 months, and one what happened recently, just last week, where we elected new representatives. So we will have new students coming in and working on academic integrity as well. And our partners are numerous. We try to stay on the European level, but from time to time, we're also discussing things at the national levels, and we coordinate ourselves according to some of the issues that are rising on national levels from our membership. Now I have prepared a Menti. However, since Menti is just in English, maybe it's better if we skip this, and later I can share with you one presentation with more specific examples of how the students are working in academic integrity in Croatia and also in Ireland. So now we have divided some academic integrity breaches that were addressed by our membership as being common or less common. So the students were saying that some of the more common breaches were non-authorized collaborative work. So this would be cheating, for example, in homework, in papers, etc. So it would be the ghost authorship. Solidarity with academic dishonesty. So students most often feel that, for example, they don't want to report anything because they don't want to put themselves or another student in a difficult position where they would be at sort of a trial for the academic integrity breaches. Then we have cheating, plagiarism, and the breach of intellectual property. So this is, for example, when the students would claim something as their own when it isn't, or they would kind of copy or do the non-created work as presented as their own. While the less common academic integrity breaches would be the deception, falsification, and fabrication. And students do them most often because they don't understand what do they mean, or they think it's not such a serious breach, but they're most often are not trying to do this on purpose. It's just a lack of knowledge that causes this. And then we also have students who do the deliberate obstruction of the academic work, or they try to submit their homeworks or their work multiple times to get credit for it. And we, of course, have the research dishonesty. This is mostly in relation to, of course, the PhD students. However, we also have this reported, for example, from master level. Why do the students cheat? There are 4 reasons that we identified within ESU. So one would be the high competition among peers that creates pressure on students. For example, if we have a very competitive surrounding, then the student will try to cheat because they feel that this is how they can get their grades up, they can stay more competitive, and then they do not fall behind their colleagues, and they do not seem to be, let's say, less worthy of a certain effort. Then if there is no penalty, then for certain measures or different prevention methods which are more open to the students, then the students will not really take it seriously. And also what the students have been saying is that penalty isn't a good prevention. So this would mean that if there would be some prevention measures, for example, educational ones or ones where you discuss academic integrity, for example, also in this manner, through different conferences or open discussions, it was much better for the students than, for example, giving pure penalties to them for something that they have done, because sometimes they do not consider that their actions are worth of a certain penalty. Then there is a lack of, in general, targeted tools, methods, and procedures to tackle the academic dishonesty. For example, the academic integrity courses are not put in practice, or different lessons, different sessions that are organized by higher education institutions, or even the student organizations. And also there are present many cultural differences where solidarity with your colleagues who are being dishonest is actually seen as a positive thing instead of approaching it as a breach and then reporting it. We can specifically see this in the Southeastern Europe because students from the Western countries, like for example, the United Kingdom, then we see it also in France, in Germany, etc. These countries will have less this colleague solidarity, and their academic integrity breaches are taken more seriously. And there are higher and more clearer penalties. But for example, in the Southeastern Europe, like in the Balkan area, for example, there it's seen that, for example, if you do not help your colleagues cheat on the exam, you are not being very collegial, and then this will cause other students to turn on you and see you as a negative person instead of the perpetrator of who breached some academic integrity measures. And something that we like to mention a lot is that academic dishonesty doesn't concern only students. So it's a general thing that happens in the academic circle. So it's related not only to the professors as well, but also to the academic staff. And we need to be aware of it when we are building a culture of the academic integrity. And there is a quote that we have put as well here, which says cheating is natural and normal, even though characterized as unethical and inevitable at all levels of education. So it means that it happens often, and even if you do it sometimes, and you revisit your past, even for example, once you know more about the academic integrity, it's normal that this happens. But what is also normal is that you rise up to it and you say, I did this, it wasn't all right, but I can admit to this and I can try to correct my mistakes. And this is the entire point for us of the academic integrity. We have also done a research where we saw that the students' mental health plays a role in preservation of the academic integrity, because many students experience anxiety and a lot of work-related stress, and they are trying to find easier ways to complete their academic requirements without going through this entire process that is causing them stress, which is of course also the study process. And we have to have the synergy between all actors in higher education, because if the students see that the professor doesn't really care about academic integrity, or in fact, for example, will all the time use the same exams, the same presentations, etc., then the student just will care less about what they're doing because they don't see a point in doing it. Also, studying in a virtual setting was quite problematic for students. It was causing higher workload for them and contributed to anxiety, especially this happened during the COVID times. And now we're having an entirely new generation of students who have been studying only during the COVID time. So for them, it's quite harder to understand academic integrity in practice. Cheating in a virtual setting is easier. That's why we now have the rise of the proctoring services that students are opposing so much due to the GDPR. And we also have the need for obtaining practical competencies in a virtual settings, which is very hard, and especially in terms of research in the STEM field, for example. So it's easier for the students to cheat than to try and understand how these practical processes would work. And what we underline the most is that there is an insufficient knowledge of students and their engagement in topics of academic integrity. This is seen not only on the individual level, but also on the level of student representatives. Why do we think that the students need to be engaged? Because long-term, the students are those who will one day become either professors, they will become influencers in their own communities and in research in everyday life. And they are the ones who will sustainably build the culture of the academic integrity and help in preservation of it. And students also move on quite quickly from their educational process. So they will spend 3, 5, up to 10 years at the university, and they communicate to each other as a community just because they pass on so quickly. So what they leave for each other and the culture that they build together is, I think, much more relevant than the culture that the academic community or the professors pose on them. Because if the students share these values mutually, then they're more inclined to trust each other than to trust, let's say, an outsider or a person who is their professor or a different collaborator. And there are many cases of giving excuses at higher education institutions to not include students. It's either due to their lack of engagement, knowledge, or interest on the topic. And we think that this isn't really what should happen, that the students should be engaged. There were also cases from my own past where we would have different academic integrity boards where they would try to exclude students because they would say, if the student votes on particular academic integrity breach of a professor, it can influence their future career and their progress at this institution. And this is something which we need to be aware of, and we need to try and stop in our surroundings. And as well, many good initiatives flow under the radar. There are many activities which are organized by many institutions. However, for students, it's more engaging if you will have, for example, a party or a concert organized than if you will have an academic integrity course or a lecture. So we need to search for new incentives to make these topics interesting to the students. And finally, how can we actually engage students? So what we're trying to do as ESU is to foster the dialogue with our board members. Now we are collaborating on the PAP project, which is Partnership for University Plagiarism Prevention, and we're a member of ENAI. Now, what we're trying to do is to always put a session on this topic to make sure that even though the students might not be so motivated about this, in fact, they will participate in the session, and we're not trying to make them all experts. But if you listen about this at every single meeting, you will hear about it 4 times a year, and something will remain in your head, and subconsciously you will develop a certain pattern of acting or develop a certain type of thinking, which will be attributed to some of the sessions which are debating academic integrity. And we are trying to map up different activities at the European level. However, this has been very, very hard for us because every single country at the European level has a very different way of approaching to academic integrity. We're also trying to develop a definition of who a student ombudsperson is supposed to be and how they should engage with higher education institutions and how their roles should be promoted among the student community. We are trying to separate academic integrity from the term of academic freedom into a new discipline. We know for a fact it is, but a lot of people are trying to identify this together because they say that academic integrity is one of the rights that you are supposed to have as a student, but we feel it's more of a behavioral pattern, and it's a skill and a mindset you develop. And we also, of course, have this specialized content on this topic. So different workshops, we are doing different games as well, etc. And these are the 2 projects that we participate on. As I mentioned, there is PAP, but there is also Frauds Plus, which is done by the Quality Assurance Agency of Italy, so CIMEA. And they are also investigating fraud in higher education and how students are contributing to it, whether subconsciously or purposefully, and they're trying to raise just awareness how plagiarism can be prevented. We have some knowledge so far. So there are some good practices, for example, in Croatia, where we have the students ombudsperson, and there are different judicial courts, as well as implementing academic integrity courses within the curricula. We have some examples from Estonia where this has been done. Of course, we also have the improvement area. So there is a bias, there is this punitive action that is being used instead of like positive promotion and motivation of academic integrity values within the curricula, and also raising the number of students in different bodies needs to be a priority. So not only trying to protect them because we think that they wouldn't understand, but in fact we should develop this mindset where the students should be engaged because of their lack of understanding and consulted on these matters, so they could understand a little bit more. And yeah, strengthening the sense of the academic community, as I mentioned many times, is very, very relevant for us. In the end, I just wanted to also present this as an opportunity for you, if this is something that you would like to participate in. I am leading the ENAI working group for students. This was established in 2021, and we are basically a group of students who are debating and discussing academic integrity issues and measures. And right now we have opened possibility for students to publish something which is called the academic integrity chapters. but it's not only for students, also for the professionals and everyone who wants to contribute, where we have the experts working in the field of academic integrity, and you can post about the topic that's very interesting for you. It can be a research format, it can be a discussion starter, it can be whatever you like that you would like to share with the academic community on these topics. And right now we have started to develop certain topics. Yeah, and students can be engaged in many ways. Just to train them, engage them in dialogue, and make sure that they see the results of your work. You should also ask for feedback and be critical, but also allow students to be critical, because students cannot always understand, but just supporting them would be necessary. These are here just my contact and the contact of Martin. I just put it here because he works on intellectual property. So if you would like to find out a little bit more about these questions, you can also reach out to him. However, I would also like to share with you, I don't know, do you see this presentation?
Yes, we can see the current presentation right now.
Do you see the QQI and S1, students on the front lines of academic integrity, this one?
No.
Okay, I'll just reshare.
Yeah, or you can stop demonstration and then. Yes.
Now, do you see it?
Yes, we can see it. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So now I will just, since we didn't go to the Menti, just to give you maybe a little more specific examples that we have, that we've wrote for the European Conference on Academic Integrity and Plagiarism this year. And this is basically on students who work specifically on academic integrity in two countries. One is Croatia and the other one is Ireland. And for us, this is a very important presentation because it will serve as a basis on deciding how the role of student ombudsman should be debated at the European level and should be created as well. So introduction of ESO, I can skip this one because we also had it. And here are some of the networks that we also collaborate with. So it's the best practice program in promoting academic integrity steering committee. This is a group of the European Commission, and they have every second year, they are opening calls for different actors from all over Europe to apply for funding of academic integrity projects. So if you will be interested in submitting any of the projects, you can just keep it in mind because they will open another call next year. I think it was around June that they opened it, and the call is closed late summer. So it gives you quite enough of time to prepare and debate ideas with your students if you would prefer. Then we have the ETINED, and we collaborate with the ENOGE. ENOGE is the network of ombudsmen in Europe. Then we have the ENAI and the PUB. QQI is actually the Quality and Qualifications Ireland, which is the national QA agency in Ireland. They were established in 2012, and they also function as an ENIC-NARIC center. So this means that they're a awarding and certification body for different types of recognition in Ireland. And they also are a regulator for the academic integrity according to their legislation. So they have an initiative which is called NINE, which is this is the National Academic Integrity Network, which is a voluntary network in which everyone can participate. So all public higher education institutions and universities can actually join this network and just discuss academic integrity, and they are supposed to help and support other education institutions to engage with the challenges in academic misconduct and academic dishonesty, and actually to develop different initiatives at the higher education level on how different dishonesty issues can be tackled. And they also develop national resources and tools that everyone can use, so the teachers, the students as well, etc. And they're just overall working with the USI, which is the Union of Students in Ireland, so a national students union, to kind of promote their work and to make sure that they get the students on board as well as higher education institution. And they operate according to two principles, so principle of trust and the principle of open dialogue. The goal that we have had together, so ESO and the QQI, ESO was to do a qualitative research of the role of student ombudspersons in Croatia and assess how Croatia is tackling basically academic integrity breaches, because in Croatian legislative system, student ombudsperson is a student working for the student and addressing these topics. So we were interested in finding out how these students are being trained. And then we have the QQI, which is also doing a qualitative research, but they are having on the role of the students when collaborating to the professional bodies and to the experts. So these are two quite different positions on the same thing. And then in the step 2, we want to do a comparison of the practices efficiency and define which role should be the best one, or for the optimization as, let's say, a universal approach to academic integrity on a European level. And then this will be put in a paper, which ESO would develop. And now we have a new project regarding this. And we will basically define how this should work, and then we will lobby to make sure that every higher education institution in Europe has and adopts the same principles. So in Croatia, there is a law called Law on Students' Council and other student organization, where the students' ombudspersons are defined as students democratically elected by other students at higher education institutions. And they also organize on a national level where they have a coordinator. And the mandate of these people lasts 1 or 2 years, depending on which university they attend and how they have internal regulations for it. On a local and national level, students address different issues. So there are, for example, challenges in recognition, academic freedom issues, discrimination, conflict of interest, but also plagiarism, ghost authorship, intellectual property breaches, etc. And these students collaborate with higher education institutional bodies which deal with different types of academic misconduct. So they can be, for example, ethical bodies, judicial bodies, bodies like external bodies for the quality assurance at the institution, etc. And what is important that in Croatia, this functions more like a lawyer trustee system, where the student ombuds needs to respect the confidentiality of information between them and the person that reported something or is asking for their consultation. So it isn't something that you would discuss in a large hall in a board meeting in front of everyone, of course. It's to be dealt with quietly and asked for support however the student wants it. The highlight is making sure everyone is comfortable. And for many students today, even though this practice exists, the role is an enigma, and these students experience barriers in addressing topics which student ombuds are doing because they don't have any professional training, and the students are afraid sometimes of the consequences that they might have if they are a student's ombudsperson. So there is a lot to work on. However, the system is established legally. In Ireland, it functions a little bit better. So there are many members, almost 100, and 13 of which are students. So it's a little more than 10%. And they have a lexicon of different guidelines of how the students should behave and how this should be consulted at the higher education level. And there are also some case studies which help you understand better different issues or different things that are happening at the institutions. And also the guidelines are developed on these 4 topics. So it's basically dealing with a misconduct, but also it has some examples of positive approaches to make sure that the academic integrity is upkept. they have different initiatives. So one is the My Own Work campaign and the National Academic Integrity Week, where they're speaking on these issues. And also there are different support frameworks. So there are 3 different parts. So one is the managing academic misconduct, second is dealing more with the policy, and third one is supporting templates for staff. So it's like knowledge base, for example, for this organization. Yeah, and this is basically the end of this presentation. So I would like to maybe stop sharing and see if there is anything, any questions that you would like to have or discuss.
You can ask the questions in the chat or raise your hand in any language because the translation is available. But yeah, I've already received some requests for you to share the presentation. If this is okay, what we can do on our website of the integrated project, we have the resource center. We can download it, the PDF file of your presentation.
Yes, okay, I can send it to you immediately after the session, and it can be shared.
No urgency, no urgency, that's okay, no problem.
Okay, if there are no more questions, maybe I can just reflect also on like my collaboration with the students from Kazakhstan. For me, it has been quite an enjoyable experience, I have to say, because European students don't like to discuss these topics so much. I've had an experience in Estonia where the students were quite good, quite engaged, but I have never seen students more engaged than the students from Kazakhstan. And yeah, having seen all the videos and all the active participation that students have, and like really participating and building a culture is very, very relevant. And I really had the most enjoyable experience in this. So I'm sure that students from Kazakhstan will have a lot to contribute to not only Europe, but in general, I think the entire Eurasia on this topic, because I think in today's world, it's kind of hard to discuss these topics, and we have more and more scientific production, but there are no measures or no developed ways on how to track what's happening, how to address these topics. And I think that if you start working on this from such a young age, while you are starting the universities, this will in the end result in a much positive working environment and a much higher quality of research for. So I think in Kazakhstan, this will be shown through some years.
I think there is a question in the chat.
Yeah, so the strategies that we have seen that the students like in a non-threatening way have been maybe just to debate it in different classes with the professors. Some students said that they had, in fact, when they were presented by the library and all the resources that they get once they join university, that they would have a small session on academic integrity, and then the professors would kind of discuss this when they would have their thesis defense, or when they would have different homeworks or final papers to present as well. So then the students were kind of thinking about this from the beginning, because they were thinking, oh my God, I'm coming to the university, this is very important, and I really don't want to mess anything up. So then they're more attentive and more inclined to learn. And we have seen that there is a student body system, so where the students kind of communicate to the younger students what's happening at the institution. And if they discuss academic integrity, then the students are more likely to not commit breaches. So kind of just to work with the student associations, I think, and making sure that they are the ones who are also actively promoting the students. Students can be quite an engaging thing.
This is one of the messages that we are giving in our project too, that academic integrity is not limited to you being in academia, and it's not just about a set of rules or code of conduct. This is philosophy, this is your personal choice, because no matter where you are, it's still, behavior, you use the word, right? But this is a choice that you make yourself. But if you don't mind, Peggy, if we have time, I would like to readdress this question to Professor Shamatov, because he works at Nazarbayev University, the Graduate School of Education. Professor Shamatov, what do you think the best strategies of promoting academic integrity are, in your opinion, or based on your experience? Professor Shamatov, are you with us? Do you hear us?
He wrote that he cannot turn on the mic. Yeah, but if someone else wants to share, this would be great for us. Yeah, I think like maybe I could just also comment on what you said. I think it's more, academic integrity is more than just being in an academic community. And we have had some examples. Also, I think it was this year, but also last year, where, for example, students are engaging in contract cheating. So they would pay someone to do their work. And this is outside of academia. It's very hard to control, and it's very, very hard to sanction, because if you pay, for example, a copy service to provide you with the books, or if you pay them someone to do the work for you, it's very hard to say in the end, this isn't what you've done, it's what has been done by someone else. And this is, I think, a big problem, because the students don't see a problem in it, as the other person is compliant with the fact that they're writing this for the students themselves. So I think that in general, this is a topic that touches a lot of the society. And we have had the examples, I think it was last year, where a Czech scientist who was very, very prominent, in fact, was accused of academic misconduct for plagiarism after so many years and after being so respected in the Czech community. So I remember that this was a huge scandal. So it's like no one is beyond this. No one is beyond academic integrity or the measures and the sanctions that come with it. But there is just a level of us understanding when is the line crossed, and maybe admit when we made a mistake and try and redact what we did, and just try to make sure that we kind of live up to the expectations of the academic community for us.
Okay, were you planning to use the Menti?
Yeah, it was in the presentation, but then I provided, because it was just more general opinion, so it was kind of, now it doesn't make sense, I think, because I put also the more specific examples.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that this is it. If there are any questions, yeah, from my side, they can be reached at any point. I will be leaving ESO in a month, but I will stay active on the topic, and my email address is active. So yeah, whatever you need, if you want to also have a discussion with us or try to suggest some changes or what to do better, I'm very open for this.
We started the very serious consideration about not just thinking what kind of choices we are making, but what kind of steps we are going to take, because this is a very serious topic which we face on an everyday basis. In the meantime, Becky, thank you very much. We are going to see you not only tonight, right, very soon,
Yes.
Because you will be introducing one of the winners, but also on July the 8th,
Yes.
the joint webinar that we are organizing with the University of Tsinghua. And you will also hopefully have a chance to meet with Polina Len, who is the current president of the student government of the academic year 22-23, who actually will be joining the joint webinar as well. And I hope that there will be the collaboration, because the current composition of the student government are also right now considering a set of regular events which will be devoted to academic integrity. And as I know, they're also thinking about their own role in policy making on the level of the university they are the part of.